Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. The U.S. is being asked to help pick up the tab for a Greek bailout through the International Monetary Fund. Among the lawmakers calling on the Obama administration to block U.S. tax dollars from being spent on such a bailout is Representative Mike Pence, a Republican from Indiana. He sits on the Committee on Foreign Affairs. He is also chairman of the House Republican Conference, the party caucus for Republicans in the House. Joining us to discuss the issue and others coming out of Washington is Representative Pence. Welcome to Newsmax TV, Representative.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
You and Representative McMorris Rodgers of Washington State are asking your colleagues to sign on to a letter to Treasury Secretary Geithner urging him to protect taxpayers from spending more money to bail out relatively wealthy nations. What worries you the most about the direction the Obama administration is moving with this?
Well, we think there's a couple of arguments against involving U.S. taxpayers in either the Greek bailout or any broader European bailout. Probably the most important reason is that the European Union was actually formed to compete economically with the United States of America. And the United States is not asking European countries to bail out New Jersey or California, and we think it's just wrong to ask possibly future generations of Americans to pick up the tab on bailouts for European countries in that competitive marketplace. We're actually calling on the administration to oppose any additional IMF loan guarantees, but more than anything else, we just don't think the United States should be facilitating through the International Monetary Fund a bailout of Greece or any other European country. These countries ought to do what the United States of America ought to be doing, and that is putting their own fiscal house in order.
What's been Tim Geithners' response?
Well, I don't know that we've received a formal response from the Treasury Secretary yet. We've sent that correspondence requesting that he oppose it, but we're also, quite frankly, Kathleen, developing legislation that may be ready next week that would restrain this administration from voting in favor of any additional U.S. participation in a European bailout through the International Monetary Fund. We just simply believe that the $6.8 billion in loan guarantees that is the U.S. piece of the Greek bailout, or the potentially more than $50 billion in loan guarantees that's been proposed in the wider European bailout is just not a proper role for this or future generations of Americans.
Now, the federal budget deficit hits $82.7 billion, an all-time high for the month of April. As government revenue fell sharply, what impact would bailing out other countries have on the deficit, our economy, and job creation?
Well, the left will argue that there's no immediate impact because although the United States is the largest contributor to the International Monetary Fund, that what's being offered through the IMF are loan guarantees. Well, look, Greece shows no willingness to make the kind of tough choices to put their fiscal house in order. The likelihood of Greece defaulting on those IMF loans and sticking American taxpayers with $6.8 billion is very real. The likelihood of other defaults by European powers could stick American taxpayers with another $50 billion. And we would simply ask, where does it stop? I mean, the American people have rejected bailouts categorically since the Wall Street bailout a year and a half ago. And the last thing I think they want to see this administration doing, or the United States doing, is putting future generations of Americans and our own fiscal health at risk by taking the bad ideas of TARP and the Wall Street bailout and taking them global with the European bailout.
Okay, let's talk health care reform. The Congressional Budget Office says Obamacare could top $1 trillion, and in response, the president called for a non-discretionary spending freeze, but Congress could still approve it. Does the GOP have a real shot at appealing Obamacare?
Well, I absolutely believe that we have an opportunity to repeal and replace Obamacare with health insurance reform that'll lower the cost of health insurance without growing the size of government. Obviously, it's going to be a two-step process. First, we need to repeal the Pelosi Congress in 2010. Then we need to replace the Obama administration in 2012. But in between 2010 and 2012, if the American people award Republicans with a new majority on Capitol Hill, we can use the power of the purse to delay implementation of Obamacare and then take our case for market-based health insurance reform that includes medical malpractice liability reform to the American people in the 2012 elections. This is a defining issue of our time. I believe that we have an opportunity to take this case to voters in this election year and in 2012.
Voters will be watching very closely how the Obama administration moves forward on this one. In the midterm elections, Newsmax contributor Dick Morris expects that Republicans will take back the House and likely the Senate. What must Republicans do to ensure that that happens?
Well, I think what Republicans must do, both those that are in office and more importantly the millions of people that tune into Newsmax TV and to your wonderful online presence, is all of us need to understand that it's only halftime in this locker room. Republicans in Washington, I think, have to be offering bold ideas, rejecting the borrowing, the spending, the bailouts, and the takeovers of the recent past, even some of those things that happened under Republican control, and lay out an agenda for a better America, built on better solutions, the common values and common sense of the American people. But for everyday Americans who are looking in, we all have to recognize that the left will not go without a fight. We have to roll our sleeves up. We have to take the case for a new, renewed conservative majority on Capitol Hill to our neighbors and friends every day between now and Election Day. And with their help and with God's help, I believe we will have a new conservative Republican majority on Capitol Hill that's willing to tackle these challenges at home and abroad with old-fashioned, common-sense conservative principles.
You think Republicans will take back both the House and the Senate?
I think there is an opportunity to take back the House and maybe the Senate. But I believe at this point it's just an opportunity. We have special elections coming up in the next several days in places like Hawaii and Pennsylvania. I was campaigning with Tim Burns in Pennsylvania just this last Monday. There is an opportunity, but not a certainty. And people who care about these issues need to stay engaged, stay involved, and run through the tape on Election Day, and we can win back the American Congress for the majority of the American people.
I want to ask you about some of these special elections taking place right now. What are you hearing about the special election to replace John Murtha in Pennsylvania and the special election in Ohio?
Both of our candidates in Hawaii and Pennsylvania are doing well. Those are competitive races. We are cautiously optimistic about the chances for Republican pickups in Hawaii and Pennsylvania, but we will not relent for a single hour between now and when the polls close next Tuesday. I was in Pennsylvania with our candidate Tim Burns. He's an outstanding conservative. He's taken bold stands in the late John Murtha's old district, and people need to know, particularly friends and neighbors in the 12th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, that this is going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a close race, but we really believe we have an opportunity there to not only send a good man to Washington in Tim Burns, but to send a real message to Washington, D.C. that real change is coming. And we think it can start in Hawaii and Pennsylvania, just the way we saw happen in Virginia and New Jersey and Massachusetts.
Representative Pence, I'm going to ask you one more question real quickly because I know that you have to leave us for a vote. Newt Gingrich has said that the contract with America was very key for the Republicans taking back power in '94. Are the Republicans preparing a contract with America this time? And if you can guess, what will be some of the key issues?
Well, stay tuned. I believe you're going to see a great debate in the weeks and months ahead as Republicans reach out to the American people and begin to build an agenda for the future. In just the coming weeks, there's going to be exciting announcements about the engagement of the American public by Republicans in Washington, D.C. But for now, we're going to continue to keep our head down and battle against the big government liberalism at home and abroad of this administration and this Democrat majority. But you bet, better solutions are going to be an important part of the closing arguments of this campaign.
All right, Representative Mike Pence, thank you for your time and your insight. We appreciate it.
You bet.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.